Rodney Alcala was one of the most sadistic serial killers in American history, earning him the nickname the Dating Game Killer after he appeared on a popular TV show in 1978, right in the middle of his killing spree. His crimes span at least 4 decades, and his victim count is believed to be far higher than what he was officially convicted for. With his charming demeanor and high IQ, Alcala evaded law enforcement for years, leaving behind a trail of brutal murders across the United States. Welcome to True Crime Stories, and this is the full story of Rodney Alcala, a predator hiding in plain sight. Rodney Alcala's early life. Rodney James Alcala was born on August 23, 1943 in San Antonio, Texas. When he was about 8 years old, his father abandoned the family, and his mother moved them to Mexico, before eventually settling in Los Angeles, California. By all accounts, Alcala was a bright student with an above-average IQ of 160, genius level. He later attended the University of California, Los Angeles, UCLA, where he studied fine arts. However, any hope for a normal life ended when Alcala joined the U.S. Army in 1961. He served as a clerk, but his time in the military was short-lived. He suffered a nervous breakdown and went AWOL. He was later diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder and was discharged on medical grounds in 1964. What followed was a disturbing descent into violence. First known attack, Tali Shapiro, 1968. Alcala's first known crime happened on September 25, 1968, when he lured an 8-year-old girl named Tali Shapiro into his car in Hollywood, California. A witness saw the child get into Alcala's vehicle and called the police immediately. Officers arrived at Alcala's apartment just in time to find the little girl unconscious and barely clinging to life. He had beaten and assaulted her, but before they could arrest him, Alcala escaped out the back door and fled to the East Coast. With a warrant out for his arrest in California, Alcala changed his name to John Berger and vanished into New York. The New York years and the murder of Cornelia Crilly, 1971. While hiding under the alias John Berger, Alcala enrolled in the New York University School of the Arts, studying under famed film director Roman Polanski. During this time, he worked odd jobs and even got a position as a counselor at an arts camp for children in New Hampshire. A terrifying thought, considering his past. In 1971, 23-year-old Cornelia Crilly, a flight attendant for TWA, was found murdered in her Manhattan apartment. She had been raped, strangled with her own stocking, and left with a bite mark on her body. The case remained unsolved for decades, as there was no DNA testing at the time. Captured and released, 1971 to 1974. In 1971, 2 girls from the arts camp recognized Alcala's picture on an FBI wanted poster. He was arrested and extradited to California for his attack on Tali Shapiro. However, her family refused to let her testify in court after the trauma she endured. Because of this, Alcala was only convicted of assault, and after just 34 months in prison, he was released on parole in 1974. Shockingly, not long after his release, he was arrested again, this time for abducting and assaulting a 13-year-old girl. But once again, he was given a light sentence and was released after just 2 years. From that point on, Alcala became a true predator. The 1978 dating game appearance. By the late 1970s, Rodney Alcala had perfected his disguise, a charismatic, handsome man with a talent for photography. He often lured women by claiming he was a professional photographer, asking to take their pictures for his portfolio. Shockingly, during his killing spree, Alcala auditioned for and won an episode of the popular game show The Dating Game in 1978. On the show, he was introduced as a successful photographer who enjoyed skydiving and motorcycle riding. His creepy and overconfident responses charmed the Bachelorette, Cheryl Bradshaw, enough for her to pick him as her date. But after the show ended, Bradshaw refused to go on the date with him, telling producers he seemed too creepy. She may have saved her own life. At the time of his dating game appearance, Alcala had already murdered multiple women. Rodney Alcala's confirmed murders. Although authorities suspect Alcala may have killed over 100 people, these are the known victims he was convicted of murdering. 1977, Jill Barcombe, 18 years old. Jill was a runaway from New York, living in California. Alcala raped, beat, and strangled her to death in the Hollywood Hills. 1977, Georgia Wickstead, 27 years old. A registered nurse, Georgia was raped, strangled, and bludgeoned to death in her Malibu apartment. 1978, Charlotte Lamb, 32 years old. Charlotte was found strangled with a shoelace in an apartment laundry room in El Segundo, California. 1979, Jill Parenteau, 21 years old. Jill was murdered in her own apartment in Burbank, California. Nitin Settini, Robin Samso, 12 or Gamel. Robin was the youngest of Alcala's known victims. She was kidnapped while riding her bike to ballet class in Huntington Beach, California. Her remains were found in the foothills of Los Angeles. What was left of them? This would be the case that finally led to Alcala's arrest and conviction. Alcala was arrested in July 1979 after police found his storage locker, which contained hundreds of photographs of women and young girls, along with trophies from his victims. His first trial in 1980 convicted him for the murder of Robin Samso, and he was sentenced to death. However, the verdict was overturned twice on technicalities, leading to a third trial in 2010, where he was convicted for 5 murders and sentenced to death once again. During his trial, he represented himself, asking himself questions in a bizarre courtroom performance. As DNA testing improved, Alcala was linked to more murders, including those of Cornelia Crilly and Ellen Hover in New York. By 2016, he had been indicted for at least 8 murders, but is suspected of many more. Death and legacy. Rodney Alcala never faced the death penalty. He died of natural causes on July 24, 2021, at the age of 77, after spending over 40 years behind bars. To this day, authorities believe there are more victims. Hundreds of photographs found in his possession remain unidentified. His chilling dating game appearance remains one of the most disturbing moments in true crime history, proof that a serial killer can be hiding in plain sight.